Okay, so we have finished doing our comps and we have finished doing our trimming and fading. And so the next step is really quite simple. This is removing low frequency rumble. Some people think of this as part of the mixing phase, but to me, I look at editing as what we're trying to do is kind of remove all the stuff that doesn't belong so that when we get to the mixing phase, we're not focused on fixing things and we can just focus on getting everything to sound and balance the way that we want them to. So we're going to go ahead and remove the low frequency rumble during the editing phase. And it's really quite simple how to do this. All we need to do is go over here to our audio effects, and we can either go down here under EQ and choose channel EQ, or the shortcut is to just click on the EQ window right here on the left hand side. Make sure you're clicking on the tracks channel strip, not your stereo output channel strip. I see this a lot where people will accidentally start putting all these effects and plugins and all the stuff that we're going to do over here in the stereo output, and that's not where you want them. You want these on the actual track for your vocal. So I'll single click on the EQ. And then essentially what we want to do is remove anything that is lower in frequency than the actual voice. And so you can make sure that your analyzer is on. Sometimes there's no sense. If you don't see these little lines popping up here, just click down here. Sometimes it will be off. Sometimes there's... All right, so we click it, turn it on. Sometimes there's no... And then what I like to do is actually go on the left-hand side here and just kind of click and drag up a little bit. And you see how the numbers are moving. And that allows us to just see lower volume stuff. And you'll notice that really the peak of my voice seems to be living... The lowest part of it is right around here, right around 100 hertz or so. And so we want to just cut out everything below there essentially. So there's two ways to do that. One way is to just turn on our low cut or high pass filter and I'm just clicking on the hertz number down on the bottom here and dragging up. And I can just put it to roughly where it looks like is where my voice ends. Sometimes there's no sense in it. Can't tell when you're gonna throw a fit. Sometimes feel... Right, and then we can kind of just listen and try to decide the point at which it sounds like I'm cutting out a little bit of my voice. Sometimes there's no sense in it. Can't tell when you're gonna throw a fit. And if it sounds like we're cutting out a little bit of the voice, then we just kind of back it off a little bit. But I want to show you one other way to do it, and that is to leave that off and instead turn on a low pass filter and drag this way down to about that same area. And then do the opposite. Continue moving this down until it sounds like the voice has more or less disappeared. Now, I should mention, if you're listening on speakers or like cell phone speakers or something like that right now, you might not hear this. You'll probably want to listen to all this on headphones in order to hear this low frequency stuff. Sometimes there's no sense in it. Can't tell when you're gonna... So I'm going to just pull this down until it sounds like the voice more or less disappears. And so for me, that's somewhere right around 85. There might still be a little bit down there or so. But that's kind of my new target. And so now that I've identified it, I'm going to turn that off and then turn back on my high pass filter and set that to that number of about 85 or so. Sometimes there's no sense in it. Right, and the reason we're doing this is because anything that's making sound down here is well below where my voice is actually making sound, and so it is not something that we want in our recording. It's going to be anything from the sound of bumping the microphone to just the sound of the heating or air conditioning system kind of rumbling in the background. So we just kind of get that out of a recording right away. And the last thing I should mention about this is you want to make sure that your slope here, which you can see is 12 dBs per octave, we don't want that to be super steep. Like you might see some people kind of crank this thing up like this and you get this really harsh little slope here. I tend to like more of a gentle slope. I think it's a little bit more natural sounding and avoids, problems with phase shift and all that kind of stuff. So that's it. That's how we remove our low frequency rumble.